boy, a lot in the news, a lot going on in this country right now. Setting aside the weirdness of Donald Trump and Michael Wolff and all that, I realize you can't totally set it aside, but there are real issues that are being largely ignored because of the media circus around Donald Trump, the big fan of P.T. Barnum. For example, Michael Phelan of Social Security Works sent this out a few days ago. He said, in a sneak attack on Social Security, Senate Republicans are proposing cuts to the Social Security Administration. This would result in delays in services and an erosion in confidence in the system. We must stop this backdoor attempt to dismantle our Social Security. And here's the actual detail. In the new federal budget being voted on this month, Senate Republicans are proposing a $500 billion cut, $492 million cut to the Social Security Administration. This is on top of the billions Republicans have already underfunded the Social Security Administration this decade, which means longer wait times at Social Security offices, longer hold times when you call Social Security, and delays in millions of retirement, survivor, and disability claims. And SocialSecurityWorks.org, of course, is fighting this, number one. Number two, flu pandemic. I mentioned this the other day, how the flu virus really does well. It's highly contagious and easily transmissible when the air is lacking moisture, when you've got really dry air, which of course is every winter. As the temperatures go down and we turn on the heat in our houses, the humidity in the air vanishes because, because the outside air, it doesn't have as much moisture because it's colder, so the moisture precipitates out. That becomes our inside air. It starts out with less moisture, and then we heat it up, and of course the relative humidity drops, or the absolute humidity drops. So Michael Osterholm and Mark Olshaker over at the New York Times last week, actually it was earlier this week, it was on the 8th, wrote an article titled, "We're Not Ready for a Flu Pandemic." And this is where this ties in with trade policies and manufacturing policies. He writes, when a pandemic does strike, we will be in trouble, in part because American hospitals and pharmacies keep in stock no more than a few days' supply of most life-saving drugs, almost all of which are made in Asia. In fact, right now, the United States is largely out of Tamiflu, which is the drug that you give people when they have it's an antiviral. It's a drug you give people when they have a severe case of the flu. He continues, a 1918 type influenza pandemic could cause ruin on the order of what the Black Death did to 14th century Europe, but on a global scale, like the Black Death, such a pandemic would alter the course of world history. He says, we are not prepared. Our current vaccines are based on 1940s research. And once again, outside of the vaccines, pretty much everything is made outside of the United States. A brilliant piece by Nicholas Kristof in today's New York Times. I strongly recommend you check this out. Or actually, it was yesterday's Times. It's January 10th. It's titled, Trump's Threat to Democracy. It's on the front page of the digital New York Times right now. And he points out a couple of political scientists. This is Stephen Levitsky and Daniel Ziblatt, both professors at Harvard. They just published a new book titled How Democracies Die. And in that book, they said that there are 4 warning signs when you're looking at a politician to indicate that that politician may become a Mussolini or a Hitler, that he may become or she may become an authoritarian destroyer of democracy. And those 4 criteria. Now, actually, before I tell you these criteria, let me give you the kind of backstory. He says, the 2 professors, Harvard professors who wrote this book, write, a politician who meets even one of these criteria is cause for concern. With the exception of Richard Nixon, no major party presidential candidate, not even presidents, candidates, no major party presidential candidate met even one of these 4 criteria over the last century. So from 1900 till today, no presidential candidate, with the exception of Richard Nixon, met even one of these criteria, and Nixon only met one of the 4. Here's the criteria. Number 1, the leader shows only a weak commitment to democratic rules. Well, that's Donald Trump, right? Flaunting the rules, see what you can get away with, break the law. Number 2, he or she denies the legitimacy of opponents. Trump said Obama wasn't even born in the United States. He calls Hillary Clinton a criminal, crooked Hillary, all this stuff. Number 3, he or she, rather than respecting the opponents, which is something even Nixon did. Number 3, he or she tolerates violence. Trump saying to people, hey, you know, rough them up a little bit and I'll pay your legal fees. Or saying to a convention of police officers, hey, stop putting your hands on people's heads when you put them in the car. Bang them around a little. Or words to that effect. And number 4, he or she shows some willingness to curb civil liberties or the media. Did you catch Trump's speech yesterday about how he wants to, quote, reform our nation's libel laws so that he can sue Michael Wolff, who wrote this book? I mean, that's what it's all about, right? These 4 criteria, the authors of this book say, again, with the exception of Richard Nixon, no major party candidate met even one. Nixon met only one. Unfortunately, Donald Trump meets them all. And they write in this book, How Democracies Die, that people who meet all 4 of these criteria are now ruling in Russia, the Philippines, Turkey, Venezuela, Ecuador, Hungary, Nicaragua, Sri Lanka, Ukraine, Poland, and Peru. And I would add Myanmar to that list. And here we are. Is this the road we're going down?